it wasn't a lie. I just forgot to tell you. Like, yeah, I told you that I went to the store, but like, I didn't need to tell you what I got or who I was with or what I did. Like, oh, I forgot to tell you about that. Yeah, no, like this actually happened. I forgot to mention that. You see, we all know like narcissists lie. Like that's kind of ingrained with like everybody's concept about narcissism, and they understand like, hey, narcissism, liars. Like it normally goes together. Like typically, like, narcissism, cheaters. Like typically, it all goes together. We're just like, yep, that makes sense. That's a connection. But there's an aspect with narcissism and with lies that oftentimes there's a separate lie. Like not just the one of like, oh, like I told you I didn't do this and I did do this. Like, oh, I was hiding like a cheating affair. Like there's also this aspect of lies of omission. Sometimes there's like a gray area here. I don't think there is, but sometimes people think there is. And the actual idea is like either the narcissist forgot or the narcissist just omitted part of it. And as a result, they shouldn't be held accountable for that being a lie. I think that's false. A narcissist is accountable for their words, for their actions, and typically a good way to lie for a narcissist is just to admit it. It's a lot easier to stick with the truth and just omit a little part of it than it is to fabricate a whole nother lie. You see a lot of narcissists that are really crappy liars, and the ones that are ones that fabricate this whole lie, this whole thing out there. The ones that get really good at it are the ones that live really close to the truth, and they just pull out the pieces that they don't want you to see. That's a lie of omission. So like the narcissist will say like, hey, I went to the ball game the other day. Okay? That's the truth. But what they didn't tell you is they went with another person. They had an affair. Or they went and did this, and they leave out different bits and pieces. And they do that a lot of times to try to justify in their minds that they're not guilty. Like, oh, I forgot to tell you. No, you didn't forget to tell. You made a conscious decision not to tell. You might be like, no, like they said they forgot. Like I really believe they forgot. In the moment when a narcissist lies, there is no forgetting. There is purpose, calculated, conscious effort to leave out certain things that will make them feel ashamed, make them feel guilty, make them feel vulnerable, and have them be honest and accountable. That's it. A lot of times people want to say like, oh no, like the narcissist forgot. Like, oh, they forgot. They didn't forget. Maybe a year down the road, they forgot it. Maybe like 2 years down the road, they gaslit themselves enough to think that, you know, they did this or they didn't do this. But in the moment, no, they didn't forget. They chose to make a decision to not value you, to not value honesty, to not value vulnerability, and to sacrifice that on a bed of lies and say, hey, I'm choosing my comfort over honesty. And so I'm going to lie. I'm going to be the person that I want to be in my mind versus the real thing. Narcissists like to lie with the lie of omission. They'll leave out bits and pieces. So when you start in a relationship and you start realizing like, hey, like something's not adding up. Like he just told me a story and there's like 3 things missing. Or like she just said something and there's like this giant gap in like the timeline that doesn't make sense. And you start to wonder like what's actually going on here. You might be dealing with someone who's dealing with the lie of omission. And they're just leaving out bits and pieces. They're leaving out the shameful parts or the parts that might give you some red flags. So if that's happening, you might want to kind of press a little bit more, kind of question a little bit, try to figure out what's going on. Because the last thing you want is to get in a relationship and think that you're being honest, and then you realize they weren't being honest at all. Narcissists love to have the lie of omission.